The shivering girl in the cargo bay. The ship drifted through the black sea of space, its engines humming like a heartbeat in the dark. Most of the crew were asleep, but one man still worked. His name was Daniel, a mechanic who often walked the cargo bay late at night. He liked the quiet, the low sound of machines, the smell of steel and oil. But tonight, the quiet was broken not at first. It was faint, a scratching sound, a whisper, maybe. Daniel froze. Cargo bays didn't whisper. He turned off his wrench and listened. There it was again, a soft scrape, followed by a small whimper, almost like a child crying. Daniel's heart beat faster. Pirates? Stowaway? An injured crew member? He grabbed a light and followed the sound between the tall stacks of crates. The shadows stretched long in the dim glow. The sound grew clearer. A trembling breath, a faint shiver, and then he saw her, curled. In the corner between two crates was a girl at least. She looked like one, but she was not human. Her long ears twitched weakly, covered in white fur. Her hair was tangled, her clothes torn, and her body shook as if she were freezing. Two wide eyes bright, frightened, almost glowing stared back at him. An alien rabbit girl. She pressed herself against the wall like a trapped animal, clutching her knees, shivering so hard her teeth clicked. When Daniel raised the light, she let out a small cry and tried to cover her face. Daniel's first thought was simple. She's terrified. He lowered the light and slowly crouched. "Hey," he said gently, his voice quiet. "I'm not going to hurt you." But the girl didn't believe him. Her ears drooped flat against her head. She shook harder, whispering words in a language he didn't understand. Daniel didn't know what to do. She was scared, half-starved, and looked like she hadn't seen safety in a long time. His chest tightened. Whoever she was, she didn't belong locked in a cold cargo bay. He took off his jacket. It was old, heavy, and warm, the only thing keeping him from the chill of the ship's night cycle. Slowly, he placed it near her, not forcing, not rushing. The rabbit girl blinked at it. Her nose twitched, testing the air like she was smelling for danger. Her hands shook as she reached forward, grabbing the jacket like it was treasure. She pulled it close around herself, wrapping it tight. Her shivering slowed. For the first time, her eyes softened. Daniel gave a small smile. "Better?" he asked. The girl didn't answer, but she hugged the jacket tighter, her ears lifting just a little. She wasn't safe yet, but she wasn't afraid of him anymore. He sat down on the floor, not too close, and waited. Sometimes silence spoke louder than words. After a while, her breathing steadied, though her eyes never left him. "Where did you come from?" he asked softly. "Who put you here?" She looked down, ears drooping again. She didn't speak his language, but her silence was heavy with meaning. She wasn't here by choice. Daniel felt anger stir inside him. The galaxy was full of slavers, raiders, and cruel traders who treated lives like property. Whoever left her here must have been one of them. The girl shifted. With a weak hand, she pointed to the ship's doors, then shook her head quickly. She was trying to say something, maybe that she couldn't go back. Maybe that someone was looking for her. Daniel leaned forward. "Don't worry. You're safe now. I won't tell anyone. You can stay here." She blinked, ears twitching. Slowly, very slowly, she nodded. For the first time, Daniel noticed how small she was. Younger than he had thought, barely more than a teenager in human years. And yet, her eyes were filled with a weight far older: fear, pain, and the desperate need for safety. The cargo bay felt colder now, but Daniel ignored it. The girl had his jacket. That was enough. He stood. "I'll bring you food," he promised. "And water. Rest now." As he turned, he heard a faint sound behind him. "Who?" "Man," she whispered, her voice broken, but clear. Daniel froze. He turned back. The rabbit girl was hugging the jacket to her chest, her lips trembling. It was the only word she could say in his language, but she said it with trust. For the first time since he found her, she wasn't just afraid. She believed him. Daniel walked out of the cargo bay, his mind heavy. He didn't know who she was, or why she had been left there. But one thing was clear. This girl carried secrets. And soon, the ship and maybe the whole galaxy would know them. But for now, all that mattered was simple. She was cold and afraid, and a human had given her warmth, fear, and secrets. The next morning, Daniel carried a tray of food into the cargo bay. Bread, fruit, and a bottle of water. It wasn't much, but it was all he could take without raising questions. When he stepped inside, the corner where he had left her was empty. For a moment, his heart sank. Had she run away? Was she hiding again? He set the tray down and listened. The bay was quiet. Too quiet, and he heard a faint rustle from above. Daniel looked up. On top of one of the tall crates, curled like a scared animal, was the rabbit girl. She still wore his jacket, wrapped so tight it almost swallowed her. Her wide eyes stared down at him, cautious, ready to leap away. "Easy," Daniel said softly. "It's just me. I brought food." He pushed the tray toward the open space on the floor. The girl tilted her head, ears twitching. Slowly, carefully, she climbed down. Her movements were quick, almost too quick, like she was used to running from danger. When her feet touched the ground, she grabbed the bread first, tearing off small pieces with trembling hands. She ate fast, like someone afraid it might be taken away. Daniel watched quietly. He didn't want to scare her. "You don't have to rush," he said gently. "No one will take it from you here." She froze, eyes darting up at him. For a moment, he saw fear in her face, but also something else. Doubt. Could she really trust his words? After finishing the bread, she drank the water in big gulps. Daniel noticed the way her hands shook as she held the bottle. This wasn't just hunger. This was survival. When she finally sat down, hugging the jacket again, Daniel crouched nearby. "Not too close. My name is Daniel," he said, pointing at himself. "Da-ni-l. Her ears twitched. Then, in a quiet, broken voice, she whispered, "Who? Man?" Daniel smiled. "Yes, human." He pointed again. "Daniel." She tilted her head. Then, very softly, she said, "Leary." Daniel repeated it carefully. "Leary." For the first time, her lips curled into the smallest smile. It was faint, fragile, but real. Now they had names. A step closer, but names weren't enough. Daniel wanted answers. Why was she here? Who locked her in the cargo bay? Why was she so afraid? He asked slowly, using hand gestures. He pointed at the ship's walls, then pointed at her, raising his eyebrows. "You? Here? How?" Leary's face darkened. Her ears drooped. She hugged herself and shook her head. She didn't want to answer. "Not yet." Daniel sighed. He didn't push her. But then she surprised him. She pressed her hand against her wrist, like gripping invisible chains, and pointed to herself. Chains. A prisoner. Daniel's stomach twisted. She was a slave. Leary looked away, eyes filling with fear. Then she pointed toward the stars outside the small window and shook her head quickly, her body trembling. She was trying to tell him something. Not safe. Someone was looking for her. Daniel understood enough. She had escaped. But escape didn't mean freedom. Not if the people hunting her were still out there. Before he could speak, the ship's intercom buzzed. A voice echoed across the cargo bay. "Attention, crew. Incoming signal detected. All stations prepare for inspection." Leary's entire body stiffened. She pressed herself against the wall, shaking. Her ears flattened, her breathing sharp. Daniel frowned. What's wrong? But he didn't need her to explain. He already knew. Whoever had left her here, whoever she had escaped from might be coming. He grabbed her hand gently. Stay hidden, he whispered. Don't make a sound. Her fingers clutched his tightly, as if she was drowning, and he was the only thing keeping her afloat. Her eyes begged him not to leave. Daniel squeezed her hand. I'll protect you. Then the alarm stopped. The voice returned. Signal identified. Bounty transmission. Runaway slave detected. Warning to all ships capture and return alive. Large reward offered. Daniel froze. His blood ran cold. The signal wasn't just random. It was about her. He looked at Leary. She was shaking violently now, tears running down her cheeks. She didn't need to say anything. He understood everything. They wanted her back, and they would do anything to get her. Daniel's jaw tightened. He thought of the moment last night, the way she clutched his jacket, the way she whispered human. She trusted him, and he wasn't going to betray that trust. He looked into her terrified eyes and whispered, No one will take you. Not while I'm here. But deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. The hunters would come. The ship was no longer safe, and one small act of kindness, giving his jacket, had placed him on a path that could change everything. The chase begins. The cargo bay lights flickered as the ship slowed down. Outside the window, the black emptiness of space shifted. Stars moved as the vessel adjusted course. The message still echoed in Daniel's mind. Runaway slave. Large reward. Return alive. He glanced at Leary. She sat on the floor, hugging his jacket so tightly, her knuckles turned white. Her ears pressed flat, her breath short and panicked. She didn't need to explain. He knew she was the one they wanted. Daniel knelt in front of her. Listen to me. They won't take you. Not while I'm here. But even as he said it, doubt gnawed at him. How could one mechanic protect her from slavers, bounty hunters, maybe even entire fleets? Still, when Leary looked into his eyes, trembling, but searching for hope, he knew one thing. He couldn't abandon her. The ship's intercom crackled again. Attention, crew. Prepare for docking inspection. An enforcement patrol will board us shortly. Leary's body jerked. She shook her head wildly, clutching his sleeve. Her wide eyes begged him, Don't let them find me. Daniel swallowed hard. All right. We hide you. Now. He scanned the cargo bay. Crates stacked high, heavy containers bolted down. But inspectors weren't fools. They would search. He needed a place they wouldn't look. His eyes landed on a service hatch near the floor. A maintenance tunnel. Tight, cold, but hidden. He pulled it open. Dust spilled out. Inside? Quick. Leary hesitated, fear flickering in her eyes. But the sound of docking clamps locking onto the ship made the choice for her. She crawled inside, curling small to fit. Daniel placed the panel back, leaving a thin gap for air. Stay quiet, he whispered through the gap. No matter what. Her trembling fingers brushed his hand once, then vanished into the dark. Moments later, boots thundered across the deck. The cargo bay doors opened, and armed patrol officers stormed in. Their black armor gleamed under the harsh lights. Helmets hid their faces, but Daniel could feel their eyes sweeping every corner. One officer barked, Mechanic! Step forward, Daniel did. His heart pounded, but his face stayed calm. Yes, sir? The officer shoved a hologram in his face. It flickered, showing an image Leary. Her fur neat, her clothes unbroken, but the same bright eyes. Under the picture, bounty notice. Alive capture. Reward, 10,000 credits. The officer growled. Have you seen this runaway? Daniel's mouth went dry. He thought of Leary, hiding just behind the panel, holding her breath. He forced himself to shrug. No, haven't seen her. The officer studied him. Silence stretched heavy. Then he waved his men. Search the bay. Daniel's stomach nodded. The soldiers spread out, opening crates, checking corners. One of them walked dangerously close to the maintenance hatch. Daniel's hand twitched. If they touched it, everything was over. He needed a distraction. Fast Dot as the soldier bent down. Daniel kicked over a fuel canister. It clattered loud across the floor. Everyone's head snapped toward him. Daniel raised his hands. Sorry, slipped, the officer snarled. Clumsy human. Stay out of our way. The soldiers finished their search, but the hatch stayed untouched. After tense minutes, the officer turned back. She's not here. But listen well, if anyone hides her, they will pay with their life. His visor glared cold. Understand? Daniel nodded quickly. Understood? The patrol finally marched out. The doors shut. Silence returned. Daniel exhaled hard. Sweat dripping down his back. His hands shook, but he forced himself to breathe steady. Slowly, he opened the hatch. I crawled out, her face pale, eyes wide. She was shaking worse than before, but when she saw him, she gasped a single word. Safe? Daniel gave a weak smile. Safe for now. She collapsed into his jacket, clutching it tight. Tears slipped down her face. Daniel felt a twist in his chest. She wasn't just afraid of capture, she was afraid of going back. He didn't ask. What had been done to her? He didn't need to. The fear said enough. But as she cried softly, Daniel knew one truth. Hiding her wouldn't be enough. Sooner or later, they'd come again. And next time, maybe he couldn't trick them. He looked at her trembling form and at the stars outside. His decision hardened. We run, he whispered. We leave this ship before they come back. Leary lifted her head, confused. Daniel nodded. I'll find a way. I promise. You're not going back to them. Her ears twitched. Slowly, a fragile hope sparked in her eyes. For the first time, she almost believed him. But in the darkness beyond the stars, patrol ships hunted. The chase had only just begun. Flight into darkness. The cargo bay lights dimmed as the patrol ship drifted away. For now, they were safe. But Daniel knew the truth. For now was not enough. He sat on a crate, running his hands through his hair. Leary crouched nearby, still wrapped in his jacket, her wide eyes following every move he made. She trusted him, but that trust was heavy. Too heavy. He looked at her. We can't stay here. If they search again, they'll find you. We need to get off this ship. Leary's ears twitched. She tilted her head. Run? Daniel nodded. Run. But leaving wouldn't be easy. This wasn't a passenger liner with open doors. It was a cargo hauler. To leave, they needed a pod or something that could break away, unnoticed. Daniel thought fast. He remembered the old escape pods bolted near the lower decks. Most were broken, stripped for parts. But maybe, just maybe, one still worked. He stood. Come on, quietly. Leary followed, bare feet padding softly against the metal floor. Her body moved fast, nervous, like she was ready to vanish into the shadows again. They slipped through the maintenance halls. Pipes hissed overhead. The air smelled of oil and rust. Daniel kept one ear open for footsteps, but the crew was busy. With cargo checks. Good. Less attention on them. At the lower deck, he found it, an escape pod, dusty but intact. A small capsule built for two, barely large enough to survive re-entry. But space was better than capture. Daniel opened the hatch. Lights flickered weakly inside. He smiled. It might still fly. Leary peeked inside. ears twitching nervously. Safe? He hesitated. Safer than here. But before they could enter, a loud clank echoed down the hall. Heavy boots. Voices. Daniel cursed under his breath. Patrol soldiers again. They must have doubled back. He grabbed Leary's hand and pulled her into the shadows. Two armored figures walked past, their scanners humming. One said, "Command thinks she's on this ship." "We check again." Daniel's heart pounded. Leary pressed against him, shaking, her breath hot against his sleeve. If the soldiers turned their heads, even a little, but luck held. They kept walking, their voices fading. When silence returned, Daniel exhaled. "We have to go. Now." He guided Leary into the pod. She crouched inside, hugging her knees. Daniel followed, sealing the hatch behind him. The tiny space hummed. As systems flickered alive, the console glowed dim green. Old, but functional. Daniel strapped himself in. "Hold on, Leary. This will be rough." She clutched the seat, ears flat against her head. Daniel hit the launch sequence. Warning alarms blared softly, but he ignored them. With a violent jolt, the pod detached from the hauler. The star shifted as the pod spun into the void. Leary gasped, pressing against the window. For the first time, she wasn't inside a cage or a cold bay. She was free, flying across the stars. But freedom came with danger. Outside, patrol ships blinked on the radar, their engines glowing like hungry predators. "They're scanning," Daniel muttered, watching the console. "They'll spot us soon." Leary touched his arm. Her eyes were wide, but steady. "Hide?" He shook his head. "No hiding now. We fly." The pod's thrusters roared weakly. Daniel gritted his teeth, steering into the darkness. The pod was slow, fragile, never built for long runs. The hunters would catch them easily if they didn't find cover. He scanned the display. A small asteroid field glimmered ahead. Dangerous, but it could shield them. He steered sharply. The pod rattled as rocks drifted closer. Massive stones tumbling through space. The hull groaned. Leary clutched his sleeve. Her voice was small. "Safe?" Daniel forced a smile. "Trust me." The pod dove into the field. Shadows swallowed them. Asteroids passed so close, the metal rang with their echoes. Patrol ships followed, beams of light slicing the darkness. One came dangerously near. Its spotlight swept across the rocks, missing their pod by inches. Daniel held his breath. Leary did too, her hand gripping his tight. Then the beam passed. The patrol ship veered away, chasing a different path. Daniel let out a long breath. Still alive. Leary's ears lifted slightly. Her lips trembled into the faintest smile. Alive. For a moment, they shared silence. Just two souls running through the dark. But Daniel knew it wasn't over. The patrol wouldn't give up. And the pod couldn't run forever. He glanced at Leary. She sat small in her seat, but her eyes shone now, not just with fear, but with something new. "Hope, he whispered. "We'll find a safe place. I promise." Outside, the asteroids kept moving, endless and cold. Somewhere beyond them, more danger waited. But for now, for this fragile moment, they were free. The hidden refuge, the escape pod, drifted in the shadows of the asteroid field. Its thrusters were weak, fuel almost gone, and the hull rattled from every close pass of stone. Daniel sat stiff in his seat, eyes locked on the console, listening. For the sound of patrol engines behind them, minutes crawled. No ships appeared. The scanner showed nothing but rocks and empty space. At last, Daniel exhaled. We lost them. For now. Leary slowly uncurled her small frame, still hugging his jacket tight. Her ears lifted slightly. "Safe?" Daniel gave a tired nod. Safe for a little while. But safety in space was fragile. The pod couldn't last long. They needed fuel, food, and a plan. Daniel checked the nav screen, tapping the flickering display. A faint signal pulsed nearby, a small mining station hidden in the belt. He smiled faintly. Looks like luck hasn't given up on us yet. Leary tilted her head. Station? Yeah. Daniel said, miners used to work these rocks. If the station's still there, maybe we can hide, maybe resupply. He steered the pod toward the faint signal. After long, tense minutes, a dark shape appeared between the drifting stones. Small outpost clinging to a rock, its lights weak and broken. The pod docked with a hiss. Daniel pried open the hatch, helping Leary out. The station smelled of dust and stale air, like no one had lived here in years. Stay close, Daniel whispered. They moved through the dim corridors. Dust floated in beams of light from broken panels. Machinery groaned, but the station held power barely. Leary's ears twitched at every sound, her hand brushing against Daniel's sleeve, like a child afraid of losing her guardian. Finally, they found the control room. Screens flickered, weakly showing asteroid scans and old logs. Daniel sighed in relief. We can stay here. At least for a night. He searched the storage lockers. To his surprise, he found sealed ration packs and water. Not much, but enough to keep them alive. When he turned back, he saw Leary sitting on the floor by the wall. She held the ration pack awkwardly, nibbling it with her sharp teeth. Crumbs stuck to her fur. But for the first time, she looked less afraid. Daniel smiled. Good? She nodded shyly, ears twitching. Warm, food, safe. Her voice was quiet, but steady. Daniel sat down across from her, tearing open his own ration. They ate in silence, the hum of the old station wrapping around them. But as they sat, Daniel noticed her eyes watching him, not with fear this time, but with something else. Curiosity. Finally, she spoke. Why? Help me. The question hung. Heavy. Daniel looked at her small figure, her shivering hands clutching his jacket. He thought about the soldiers, the bounty notice, a fear in her eyes when she begged him not to let them take her. He shrugged. Because it's the right thing to do. Because you don't deserve chains. Her ears flicked. Humans, not afraid? Daniel frowned. Afraid? Of what? She hesitated, her eyes dropping. Of me. The words hit him. He realized then maybe. Others saw her as less than a person, an animal, a tool, a slave, not someone worth saving. He leaned forward. Leary, you're not a monster. You're not property. You're alive. That's enough. Her eyes widened, trembling. Slowly, tears slipped down her cheeks. She had probably never heard words like that before. She whispered, alive, and hugged his jacket tighter. Daniel looked away, his chest tight. He didn't know what future waited, but one thing was clear. He couldn't let her go back. Night, the two of them stayed in the station. Daniel fixed some of the systems, setting up scanners to warn them of incoming ships. Leary curled up near a heater, finally sleeping without shaking. But even as he watched her rest, Daniel couldn't shake the weight pressing on him. The patrols would keep searching. The bounty was too high. Someone would always be hunting her. He whispered to himself, we can't hide forever. As if the galaxy wanted to prove him right, the scanner beeped suddenly. A faint signal appeared, patrol ships entering the asteroid belt. Daniel froze. They had found the trail again. He looked at Leary, still sleeping peacefully, clutching his jacket like it was the only safe thing in the world. He clenched his jaw. Not here, not now. The hunters were closing in. Their fragile refuge was about to be broken, breaking the chains. Old mining station shook as alarms echoed through its halls. Daniel ran to the control room, eyes locked on the scanner. Red. Blips filled the screen patrol ships entering the asteroid field. They were closing in fast. "Damn it," he muttered. "They tracked us." Behind him, Leary stirred from her sleep. She sat up, rubbing her eyes, her long ears flicking at the sound of alarms. "What happened?" Daniel turned, trying to sound calm. "They found us. We don't have much time." Fear flickered in her eyes, but she didn't curl into herself. This time, she stood, still clutching his jacket around her thin frame. "Run?" He shook his head. "Not this time. Running won't save us forever." His voice hardened. "We fight." Leary blinked. "Fight." "Them?" Daniel gave a short nod. "Yes, fight them." The words felt heavy. He wasn't a soldier. Not anymore. But he wasn't about to hand her back to chains. He scanned the dusty storage lockers, searching for anything useful. Luck answered again, an old mining rifle, half-rusted but functional. Power cells still hummed faintly inside. He grabbed it and slung it over his shoulder. He looked at Leary. "Stay behind me. No matter what happens, don't let them touch." "You." She nodded slowly, her ears folding down, but her eyes held something new. Not only fear-trust. The station shook again. A docking alarm blared. The patrols had arrived. Daniel moved through the dim corridors, crouching behind cover as the first patrol soldiers forced their way in. Their boots clanged against the metal, scanners glowing as they searched. One soldier muttered, "The signal came from here. The target's close." Daniel took a deep breath. His heart pounded. He wasn't fighting for himself. He was fighting for her. He raised the rifle and fired. The blast lit up the corridor, striking one soldier square in the chest. The man dropped instantly. The second spun, shouting, but Daniel was already moving. Firing again. Sparks filled the air as the second soldier collapsed. The sound echoed through the station. More were coming. Daniel grabbed Leary's hand. "Move!" They ran through the corridors, alarms blaring louder now. Voices shouted. Boots thundered behind them, dotted the junction. More soldiers appeared. Daniel pulled Leary back, ducking behind. A crate as energy bolts sliced through the air. He peeked out, fired, ducked again. The old rifle hummed with each shot. 2 more soldiers fell, but more kept coming. Leary pressed close to him, trembling, but she didn't cry. She whispered, "Why? Why do they want me?" Daniel gritted his teeth. "Because you're rare. Because they think you're weak. Because they want to own you." Her eyes hardened slightly. For the first time, anger flashed there. Daniel fired again, forcing the soldiers back. But the rifle clicked empty. Power cells drained. He cursed, tossing it aside. The sound of heavy boots grew closer. They were almost surrounded. Then Leary tugged his sleeve, pointing. "This way." She darted down a narrow maintenance tunnel. Daniel followed, crawling through the tight space. The soldiers' shouts grew distant behind them. The tunnel opened into the station's reactor chamber. Machinery hummed, glowing faint blue. Daniel's mind raced. If he overloaded the reactor, it would destroy the whole station, take the soldiers with it. But it would also take him and Leary. Leary looked at him, her ears flat, as if she knew what he was thinking. She whispered, "Die?" Daniel clenched his jaw. Not today. He spotted an emergency hatch leading to the mining skiff's small ships used to move ore. Barely spaceworthy, but faster than a pod. He ran to it, forcing the door open. A single skiff waited, its hull scratched. And entered. Daniel climbed inside, pulling Leary after him. The console flickered alive. Engines roared weakly. He gripped the controls. "Hold on." The skiff blasted free of the station, just as patrol ships swarmed in. Behind them, the station shook violently. Daniel had triggered a partial overload, enough to send shockwaves through the asteroid belt. The soldiers' ships scattered, dodging flying debris. The explosion gave Daniel the gap he needed. The skiff shot into the darkness, weaving between rocks. Leary pressed against him, clutching his arm. Her eyes were wide, but there was no despair now. Only awe. She whispered. You protect me. Daniel tightened his grip on the controls. Always, but he knew it wasn't over. The patrol would regroup. The bounty still stood. And now, with every escape, the danger only grew. Still, as he glanced at the small alien girl beside him, he felt something shift. This wasn't just about running anymore. It was about breaking the chains hers, and maybe everyone else's too. Fire and freedom. The mining skiff tore through the void, its engines straining against the black sea of stars. Behind them, patrol ships regrouped, their bright engines glowing like predators hunting prey. Daniel's hands were firm on the controls, jaw tight. He had pushed the skiff as far as it could go, but the hunters were gaining. Beside him, Leary clutched the seat, her ears flat, eyes locked on the ships chasing them. Her small voice trembled. They won't stop. Daniel gave a grim nod. No, not unless we make them. The words hung heavy, but he meant them. Running was no longer enough. Hiding was no longer enough. If they wanted freedom, they had to fight for it. He scanned the nav screen, searching desperately. Then he saw it, an abandoned fuel depot floating in the emptiness. Its tanks were cracked, but still filled with volatile plasma. Daniel's mind sharpened. He had an idea. Dangerous, deadly, but it might be their only chance. He turned to Leary. Listen carefully. I'm going to take us through that depot. When I tell you, you hide in the back of the skiff. Don't come out, no matter what happens. Her eyes widened, but no arguments. His voice was firm but gentle. If I fail, at least you'll have a chance. For a long moment, she stared at him. Then, slowly, she shook her head. Not without you. Her words were soft, but unshakable. Daniel felt a weight in his chest. She wasn't just a frightened girl anymore. She had chosen to stand with him. He gave a faint smile. All right then, together. The skiff dove into the maze of the depot, weaving between shattered fuel tanks and rusting beams. The patrol ships followed, their weapons firing bolts of energy lighting the shadows. Daniel's eyes flicked over the console, hands steady. He guided the skiff low, close to the tanks. Then, with a sharp pull, he skimmed the surface of one, sparks flying as metal scraped. Behind them, a plasma leak hissed into the void. The pursuing ships swerved, but they were too close. One clipped the tank, an explosion ripped through space. Fire swallowing it whole, the other slowed, cautious now. Daniel's plan was working. But they weren't safe yet. He looked at Leary. We need one big fire, big enough to burn them all. Her ears lifted. She understood. Together they steered. The skiff deeper, heading for the largest fuel core. The depot shook around them as stray blasts struck, debris tumbling like knives. The hunters drew closer again, cautious but relentless. Daniel's hands moved fast over the console. He armed the skiff's last mining charges, setting them to detonate. Against the core dot, the timer blinked red. Hold tight, he said. The skiff dropped the charges and pulled away, engines screaming. Behind them, the core lit up like a rising sun. The explosion tore through the depot, swallowing ships, fire stretching across the stars. The shockwave slammed into the skiff, tossing it like a leaf. Daniel wrestled with the controls, alarms blaring. Metal groaned. But somehow, the little ship held together. Silence followed. On the scanners, the red blips were gone. The hunters were no more. Daniel slumped back in his seat, chest heaving. He had no strength left, but he smiled faintly. We did it. Beside him, Leary's ears perked slowly. She stared at the empty stars where the hunters had been. Her lips trembled, and then, for the first time, she smiled. Her voice was soft. "Free." Daniel turned to her. Her fur was singed, her face pale from fear and exhaustion, but her eyes glowed with something new-hope. He nodded. "Free." The skiff drifted in silence, battered but alive. For the first time since finding her in the cargo bay, Daniel felt the weight lift from his shoulders. They had no home yet, no safe port, but they had something stronger, a promise. Daniel placed a hand gently on her small shoulder. "No one will chain you again, not while I live." She looked at him, clutching his jacket tight, and whispered, "And I will stay with you." The stars stretched endless before them, dangerous and unknown, but together they faced it, not as captor and slave, not as human and alien, but as two souls who had broken the chains. And somewhere, in that vast silence, the galaxy shifted just a little because one human had chosen to give warmth to a shivering girl. *The end.